The tribal community to which I belonged was in war. They had tribal war, and they were losing the war. And so they got together all the boats they could and what little food they could. And they decided to put the women and the children and the food in these boats and push it out to sea in the hope that we would survive and be able to recreate, regenerate. The boat I was in sank, and we all perished. One look, and I breathe.
Welcome everyone back to the Awakening to Love podcast. And we have another beautiful soul, beautiful story with us today. The Reverend Dr. Norma Edwards is going to be sharing her NDE experience. So I'm going to move out the way, let her share her story, and we'll talk at the end. So Reverend Dr. Norma, it is all on you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for giving me this wonderful opportunity to share all that I have experienced and how that has changed my life profoundly. But it was a Monday morning in London, England. That's where I lived at the time. And I woke up that morning not feeling very well. I had been away from work on and off for about a month. And doctors didn't seem to know what was wrong with me. I woke up that morning and it was my first day back on the job. So I persevered, got dressed, and I went to work. Well, during the day, I began to experience what seemed like labor pains. And at 4 o'clock, I asked my supervisor, can I leave? I stepped into the elevator, and in the elevator, there was one other person. She was a Hindu woman. Knew she was Hindu because she had the dot in the forehead, and she was wearing her cultural costume. And in those days, you know, elevators stopped with a jerk. Elevator stopped with a jerk, and it seemed like all hell broke loose inside of me. I collapsed, and she was very, 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 she realized that the hospital was 3 blocks away. So they did not call an ambulance. She just got people to help her to get me into a cab and got me to St. Bart's Hospital in London. The cab driver, this is interesting. The cab driver drove away with my handbag in his cab. He brought it back the next day, but he didn't realize that he drove away, you know, getting me out of the cab and into emergency. And so she didn't know who I was, knew nothing about me. And here I was, and I needed surgery. So they took a picture of me and they passed it to the police and asked them to see if they could trace who I was. And I become semi-conscious on a, you know, they're wheeling me into the operating room. And the doctor tells me that I have a dead fetus inside of me. In other words, I was carrying a baby. I had no idea I was carrying a baby. It was 4 months old, 4 months. And I had no idea because when I had my first child, doctors said I couldn't have any more children. So nobody ran a pregnancy test. And the next thing I know, I'm in excruciating pain. And the next experience is I'm on the ceiling and the pain is gone. I'm perfectly peaceful. And I'm looking at this setting. There were 2 doctors, I think, and a technician, and there were 2 nurses. And there was this body on the table where you talk about being confused because I'm thinking, how can I be on the ceiling? How can I be in 2 places at the same time? Because we're talking here about the 60s. Nobody ever heard of a near-death experience. So I'm watching them frantically, you know, working, and I'm thinking, I need to get down there to let them know that everything is all right. I don't know why, but I feel fine. Soon as I have the thought, I find myself on the floor. And I'm moving between these 3 males, you see. And I'm going, hello, 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 this is me. I don't know how I could be in 2 places at the same time, but I need you to know that I'm fine. The pain is gone. And then I realized they couldn't see me. They couldn't hear me. So then I decided that women are more intuitive. So I'll try the nurses. So I'm running behind the nurses while they are back and forth picking up instruments. And I'm going, hello, it's me. And then it dawned on me, wait a minute, something is wrong here. Nobody seems to be able to see me. And then I flat eye. And I'm looking at the gauge, it stops. And see, I've had friends and family who are nurses. So I knew what that meant. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, there's something wrong here. I can't possibly be dead. It must be the equipment malfunctioning. So then the doctor picks up the paddles. I call them the paddles. That's what they look like. And he picks the paddles up, and I could see the electricity around it. And the thought in my mind was, I'm not dead. But if they apply that amount of electricity to my body, they may accidentally kill me. I'm getting out of here. And with that, I went straight through the ceiling and into a very, very dark tunnel. The interesting thing of it was, I wasn't afraid, no fear, but I'm moving almost at the speed of light in this very dark tunnel. And then we come around a corner, and I could see the exit of the tunnel. And first, when I'm looking at it, it's like a kaleidoscope of color. Like if you imagine a rainbow with a whole lot more colors than you used to see. But as I hit the exit of the tunnel, the multicolored light faded, and I merged with crystal clear white light. I am here to tell you that even if I tried using every language on the face of the earth, I still would not be able to describe the love, the joy, the peace as I merged with light. And I merged into the light, and I was very aware that I had become love. And again, the first thought in my head was, how does one move around in this environment? And no sooner I think that, I am moving. And I'm moving now very, very swiftly, and I'm brought to a screen. It was the biggest, and still is the biggest television screen I've ever seen in my life. And the screen lit up, and it began to scroll. It's a large screen. It's divided into 3 sections. On the left-hand side was my life as I had planned it, in sequences, like birth to 3, 3 to. In the middle column was my life as I had lived it. And the third column looked like someone had created a stamp. It said, objective not accomplished. And the screen begins to scroll very slowly. And I'm now watching, and I'm observing, and I'm even feeling some of the experiences that I've had in my 26 years of life. I was 26 at the time. But then each time I would get to the third column and it would go, objective not accomplished. Now I'm laughing my head off because I'm thinking, how stupid could I have been? Because it seems very simple on the far left. This is what you were supposed to accomplish in this period of time. In the middle, I'm seeing what I accomplished, but had nothing to do with what was planned. And in the third column, objective not accomplished. It was not at all a judgmental assessment. If anything else, I was kind of like amused. How could I have been so stupid to not know that I came to Earth with a plan? And the screen came to an end. I reviewed the 26 years I had just left. I had not accomplished any of the things. None of the achievements that I had put on the left-hand side had been accomplished. But when I was a child, you see, I was raised in a Christian community, a lot of church. And I was a child that always had a lot of questions. And after a while, my mother would say to me, when you go to church, I don't even want you to look at pastor. because you're asking him questions he cannot answer. Now, I couldn't understand that. He's a pastor. He's supposed to have answers to these questions. But the main question that bothered me from the time I was 9 years of age was, Christ said, I came so you can have life and have it more abundantly. And that was the one that I asked the pastor, and my mother said, don't you even dare look in his direction. I was told to sing the little hymns in the chorus, say the prayers, but don't ask questions. So I started to journal. I didn't realize that I was journaling. I started to write my questions down. Well, now here am I standing now, and the screen on my 26 years I just left is over. And that thought comes back into my mind. What did Christ mean when he said, I came so we could have life and have it more abundantly? And no sooner than I asked the question, I'm very quickly transported. And now I'm at like a coliseum, huge pillars. And the screen is even bigger now because the screen is extended between two pillars. It lights up. And now they have dropped 6 other lifetimes into the one I just left. So now I'm not only reviewing, I'm experiencing a lot of fear, a lot of fear, a lot of fear. Every lifetime seemed to have had its own levels of fear brought on by different conditions. And so I'm reviewing, I'm looking and I'm reviewing. And the first place that I'm experiencing, because I'm not just looking at it and reviewing it, I'm experiencing it. It is, I keep saying it, it looked as though the earth was dark. And people walked with torches. They were carrying torches. And there were a group of adults, and I was one of them. And it seemed like we entered a cave, and the cave came out to the ocean. And when we got to the ocean, I realized that the tribal community to which I belonged was in war. They had tribal war. And they were losing the war. And so they got together all the boats they could and what little food they could. And they decided to put the women and the children and the food in these boats and push it out to sea in the hope that we would survive and be able to recreate, regenerate. The boat I was in sank, and we all perished. And of course, feeling the horror and the fear. That was the first one. The second one was I was a warrior. I was a male, and I was a warrior. And in those days, it was the dagger and the spear. And I found myself fighting during wartime. And again, fear. The next review I did, I was at the spot where Moses was pulled out to the bulrushes. I was one of the women who were there. There were a group of us. We were bathing ourselves and we were washing clothes. And this little basket came up in the bulrushes. And the discussion that took place about whether or not, the queen would not having children, if this might be a good thing. So I was very much a part of that. But again, here, different kind of fear that, well, if we present this to her and she doesn't think it's a good idea, she could probably take our life, see? So again, fear. And then I moved from there and I found myself at the place where Paul was, fell off the horse. And he had that run-in with God. Very much, I was a woman at that time, very much there as a woman. And watching how I kind of changed from the rituals that was life in those days to following the words of Paul. And then the next screen, I am a child. I'm a Black child slave mother. I knew who my father was. He was picking cotton in the same field, but nobody knew he was my father, if you see what I mean. And I'm picking cotton with my mother. And I could hear the hooves, the horses' hooves in the lane behind us. And I can hear when the horse stops, and the fear, oh my God, my heart is beating. And I can hear when the horse stops and the whip on the back. And the whip on the back indicated to me that that was someone who could not keep up with their quota. Now, fear again inside of me as a child, knowing that I'm a child, I can't keep up with my quota. So when he gets to me, I would experience the same treatment that I was hearing. And just as he was about to come around the corner, the screen changed. And now I am the white man on the horse, whip in hand, using it. And that was big, that was deep. And again, the horror of understanding this, because as a slave child, you were kind of encouraged to hate the master man, etc., etc. So how could this be? You know, not being in two places at the same time, but two different lifetimes. One lifetime I was a child, the other lifetime I was the aggressor. Screen comes to an end, and now I ask, what next? And then I am taken again, moving again without the feet touching the ground. I am moved to the river. You know, we gathered, I'm sure you remember, we sang it in church. Yes, we will gather by the river. Beautiful, the beautiful river. Gather with the saints at the river that flows from the throne of God. Yes, there is a river. And I was brought to the river, and I was on one side of the river, and on the other side of the river, there were over 300 people, all rejoicing and sending me love. Now, when you're on the other side, you see love as light. They're sending me all this light, and I could recognize some of them because they had died in my lifetime. But the majority of these people, I could not put a name to or recognize, but they were all people who had loved me and who are now on the other side. And they had come to greet me. And so they just pouring this love forth, pouring the love forth. And my aunt, who was the last person to have died in my family, because my parents were still alive at the time, she stepped forward in the water, and I began to move from my side, wading in the water, and she started her move from where she was. And just as we got to the point where we both outstretched our hands to embrace, she pulled back and she said, "I'm so sorry. They're sending you back." And I said, "Why? I don't want to go back." And she says, "They're sending you back with a message." And I said, "Well, what's the message?" And she says, "There's more to life than meets the eye. Life is eternal." I said, "But there are millions of people back there. And I'm sure that they could send someone, an angel or something, and get the message this, because I don't want to go back." I was definitely categorically opposed. Who wants to leave this place of love and light and joy? And she says, "Well, no, I'm sorry. You have to go back." But I have to tell you, they were very unceremonious about sending me back, maybe because I didn't want to come back. Boy, they slammed me into that body. And you know, it's kind of interesting. When you are in spirit, you're huge. When they try to cram this whole hugeness back into this little body, ooh, it's not a nice experience. And they crammed me back into the body, and I opened my eyes to pain, because even though I was under anesthesia, a lot of pain. I opened my eyes to discomfort and pain, and I was not a happy camper. So here I am in the recovery room, And there are two nurses who are sitting at a table. And from where I'm lying, I could see their hands moving, but I couldn't be sure what they were doing. But they're sitting at this table. And these two nurses, one, they both belong to the same church, it seemed. One went to church that Sunday, and the other one worked that Sunday. So they're sitting at this table now, and the one is outlining the sermon, the pastor's sermon. The pastor's sermon had a lot to do with hell. And I'm wanting to scream at them. Well, how could a pastor possibly get in a pulpit and preach something like that? I've just come back from this place. It is nothing but bliss and light and love. How could they do that? But of course, I've got tubes in my throat, so I can't speak, you see. And they finished. She finished outlining the sermon, and then she turned on a radio that was sitting on the table. And the radio was tuned to a classical station. And as the music began to rise, I discovered that I had come back with the ability to see music. I could see the notes. Every note is tied to a color. Every color is tied to a number. Every number is tied to a mathematical symbol. And I'm watching the integration of all of this. And I'm watching with every breath they're taking it in. And I'm mesmerized. And I'm wondering, do they realize what it is that they're sitting here doing? They are intaking all this wonderful, wonderful energy that has the potential to bring change. And then two males came along, stopped to talk to the two young ladies. And again, now I'm fascinated because they too are ingesting this amazing rhythmic pattern of light and colors and numbers. And I'm like, wow, what does this mean? But then it dawned on me, but wait a minute. The way I'm thinking of it, when I woke up this morning, I believed what it is the one nurse was explaining to the other. Why is it that I'm now so diametrically opposed to the concept? How is it that I can see music? So I'm really, really baffled. I finally get out of recovery. And in those days, you know, they put you in a ward and there might be 6 beds in a ward. And there was this one woman and she was crying out for her family because she really thought she was going to die. And I just kind of pushed my head up and I said, no, you're not. You got 10 more years. Then there was another one who was really, I could see she was getting ready to leave. And I kind of said it aloud because I couldn't get out of bed. I said, oh, when you get to the other side, it'll be light and love, but don't let them send you back. And the nurses, of course, kind of paid attention to that. And then when she died, the one nurse came to me and said, well, how did you know that? And I said, because I could see it. And then having said it now, I'm confused about, well, what happened? What really happened to me? The day I left the hospital was very interesting. It was a winter's day. And of course, the trees had no leaves on them. But I could see inside the trunk of the tree. And I could see the energy. I could see the energy being pulled from the atmosphere above all down through the trunks into the earth and into the keeping the roots alive. And so I'm standing there and I'm looking at this and I'm fascinated, just absolutely fascinated. And the journey of adjustment began. And it was not an easy adjustment because I could not talk about the things I saw. When I came back initially, I was a whole lot more alert to it. Like we're walking towards the car and there are 2 hospitals, you could tell they've got gums on. They are hurrying, I guess, to get into work. And I turned to my husband and I said, but you know, he's hurrying to get in there to take care of somebody. Doesn't he know that he has like a tumor in the brain? Because I could see it. Doesn't he know he has a tumor in the brain and that he really needs, you know, whatever? It was really, really very baffling. All very, very, very baffling. And the journey began. Because my biggest question now is, who am I? I'm certainly not the person who got taken into that hospital on a Monday, because now I can see things, I knew things automatically. And who am I? So this question rose up in my head now. Who am I? Where did all of this come from? And for 3 years, I was seriously depressed. Attempted suicide 3 times. And after the third one failed, you can imagine, by the time I got to the second one and it failed, I'm like, oh God, now I'm even more depressed because I can't even kill myself. And the third one was kind of very interesting. I had gotten with my neighbor. I had a neighbor who was a nurse, and she worked in the emergency room. And she was always complaining that just about when she's getting ready to get off duty, some suicidal patient will come in. And then she has, once you started, you got to finish it. And so I got very close to her. I said, well, what is it that they're not doing right? And I finally got out of her without her realizing why I was asking exactly how many pills. And, she says, you should just do some research and discover that if they take this amount of pills, they'll end their life and I won't have to be held back so often. So I took my time and went to the doctor. And in those days in England, if you tell them you can't sleep, they'll give you 2 pills. They won't give you more than that. And I accumulated what I needed. And I woke up that morning, my husband had gone to work, and I had 1 child at the time. I dressed him and sent him outside to play, cleaned the house. Every time I think about it, I have to laugh. I'm about to kill myself, but I cleaned the house first. And I'm in the bathroom with the pills in one hand, a glass of water in the other. And I'm saying the last prayer, I think, before I swallow the pills. And my son comes running and excited. He says, Mommy, 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 look what I found. And he opened his hand. When he opened his hand, it was a half caterpillar, half butterfly. The butterfly was emerging out of the caterpillar. And I looked at his face, this inquiring, and the voice in my head said, so when you're gone, who's going to teach him the mysteries of life? And I turned my hand over, flushed the pills away, lifted my son and took him into the playground. And sitting there that day, I made an intentional decision that if I had gone to the other side by way of a medical emergency, and I think when I attempted the second attempt at my life, they had hauled me up before the Council of 9. And you don't ever want to be hauled up. If you're going to be hauled up at the Council of 9, you better have good news. And what they had said to me is, if you continue this, we might allow you to pass. And then we will have to slam you into baby's body with full consciousness. And if you think you've got problems now, you have a whole stream of problems you can't handle. So that day I made that determination that if I did it, if a medical emergency took me there, and my bad behavior took me there, there has got to be a way to travel. And what I wanted was to be able to travel, even if it's just for one more time, to experience the light and the love and the divinity. It took 8 spiritual teachers, 3 continents, 5 children, 2 marriages. And somewhere about 25, 28 years after I had that experience, I finally got to the place where I could travel and went as far as the 16th dimension. And they tell me the 16th dimension is still a long way from heaven. So that's the sum total of my near-death experience. But I think for me, what I really want people to understand, as much as it's people listen to the stories of them, near experiencers, and they're fascinated, etc. What I really want people to understand is when we come back, we are not the same. Our perspective on life has changed. Our frequency has changed. Our ability to hear stuff from the other side, our ability to kind of be compassionate and more loving. A little bit of healing comes along. And for me, the healing is not me standing there and saying, let's do this, or that. I may be passing someone and I realize there's, and I say that little prayer. So it's the phenomenon that my life has become. I went on the next, of course, first question, my big first question was, who am I? And that got answered. And then what is my purpose? And that got answered. And when that got answered, boy, I really, fear overtook me. And then I realized that the reason why I had the review at the Akashic record, the second review was at the Akashic record, and Spirit told me that after I came back. The reason why is because I have to clear the fear. There's a piece of art on my wall that says, I did not come to bow. I came to conquer. I did not come to bow to doctrine. I came to conquer fear. So my message to the world is that I am, is each and every one of us. We are pieces of God. We are, within our bodies is divinity, and that divinity flows every time we take the breath in and we let it go. So the I am reminds me, and it should remind anyone else who's listening, that I'm a piece of the divinity that is God, and so are you. Life is eternal. And this wonderful, amazing God of unconditional love has no intention of burning anybody into hell. We keep reincarnating and reincarnating until we get it right. And that's part of my message. It's part of my message. I want to stop there and go, are there any questions?
You talked about the message that you were given, and it reminded me of something that I received in February. I was channeled through, or the message was channeled through me to the whole spiritual journey is to learn to not to judge according to appearances, that nothing is what we think it is. And it was something you said about the message you received that kind of resonated with me when I heard that. And this is something that I hear consistently, is that you have this incredible life-changing experience of love and bliss, and again, everything appearing as the truth of what it is. But then but then people like yourself come back and experience depression. Like there's a sharp contrast there of, oh, I know that there's infinite love, but like, can you talk about how you can go from that to, well, I guess almost the answer is almost in the question, because you've experienced that. This seems like, wait, I don't want to deal with this. I want to go back to that.
Okay, now let me just enlarge on that.
Mm-hmm.
Experience teaches wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
Adversity seals the wisdom inside of us. Can you feel that?
Yeah.
Everybody wants to be happy. Everybody wants to experience joy. Everybody wants to experience fulfillment. What we don't understand is that Earth is a school. It is the best school there is in any of the universes. And believe it or not, it's not just us humans at school here. There are other entities in the classroom with us that we can't even see or understand. You see what I'm saying? Many people ask the question then, well, why would we have to come to this place and experience the adversity, etc., etc.? it can be, if you align it to, you were raised, let's say, with a very loving family, mother and father, sister and brothers, but it's time for you to go to college, okay? You were raised in a comfortable home. You're going to leave the comfort of your home and you are going to go onto a college campus and have to share a space with people you don't know. You're placing yourself in an environment that is challenging so that you can learn, absorb, graduate, and be able to use what you learned there to build and expand your life. Isn't that true of college? Well, it's the same with this earth.
Yeah.
And if all we're experiencing is joy, then we're having fun, but we're not learning anything. And some people write a program, they write a process to come and be happy and enjoy, but believe you me, the next lifetime, they're going to have to double up. Am I making sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you even brought back to mind just the amazing conversation we had a few days ago when I talked about how often hearing from NDEs agreement, you know, you brought that out, and I'd love for you to bring that out again, how I said that a lot of the NDEs I speak to, they say we agree to the things that we experience here for obviously specific reasons. You remember that conversation we had a couple of days
Yes,
ago?
I remember the conversation very well. And I remembered putting a correction in there.
Yeah. I want you to
We
talk
agreed.
Yeah.
We wrote the plan.
Mm-hmm.
When you go back and you review your life, like for me, that review was about fear. You're carrying a lot of fear, you gotta release this fear. So the review was about lifetimes in which fear entered, and I'm still carrying it. So now I have to write a program, a plan that is going to take care of that. And if taking care of that requires some adversity, then while I'm in the spirit, I can see that quite well, because guess what? When I'm in spirit, I know there is no death. We don't die. We just get rid of the space suit we call a body. And we keep moving. So it's not that we agreed to a plan. We wrote the plan. We had guidance and direction. Well, so far you have learned this. You were in this lifetime before, and this passed right by you, didn't quite get it. So you go, okay, then I know I have to put it into the plan. We wrote the plan with guidance. And after we have written the plan, it is expected to be challenging. Then we are assured that we will be assigned a guide to guide us, a guard to guard our energy, and a way shower which will help us to find the way. And we're looking for results.
And so I remember I wrote that note while you were talking, because I'm imagining that people, and I think you might have just answered it, but I'm thinking people were like, okay, when did I decide that? When do we decide that?
You can't remember it, you see, because we drank the cup of forgetfulness.
Yeah.
If we don't drink the cup of forgetfulness just before we enter that little body, we will be bringing a whole lot of stuff in our consciousness that would get in the way, you see what I'm saying, of what it is we came to learn.
So,
imagine if you had been a king in a palace, and you had a court, and you had all these people attending to you, and you had many wives, and then you write a lifetime where you want to experience poverty. Can you see how that will get in the way if you do not drink that cup of forgetfulness? Because resentment would be very much in it.
And then I think also, Dr. Norma, you know, I talk about how these experiences, these earth experiences, are to help us remember who we are and remember our inherent ability to create. And if we come here knowing that, then what's the purpose? But I also know that we're working out stuff here as well. Like we're working out things like you mentioned, like fear and things like that. And really that's still to lead to the same outcome, I think, of, wow, I'm more powerful than what I imagine. I'm greater than fear. I'm greater than these experiences of hurt and pain or whatever. but I need the contrast to remind me of. So in other words, I did a
You need the
video.
pattern.
Yeah.
They're patterns. And after a while, they feed into you and they become patterns, you see.
Okay.
But patterns that are not affecting you. When we do nothing about the fear, it will keep coming up in every lifetime. And therefore, when you get to the lifetime when you're supposed to accomplish, if I may go back a little bit, and I really would encourage people to read my book, because it would help them to understand the life of a near-death experiencer. Of course, after I discovered who I was, I'm a child of God. I'm a piece of divinity. I am made of the same stuff that the stars and the moon and the ocean is made of. That's who I am. And nobody can kind of like shift me out of that. Because once it's one thing to believe it, it's another thing to know it. See what I'm saying? Once you get there now, you have to understand that, I was about to make a statement, but I give it as an example. When I'm coaching people sometimes, some people, I would ask them to make me a list of the people who have really, really, in their opinion, betrayed them, bothered them, not very nice to them, blah, 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 blah. Oh man, I usually get a really nice long list, And then I say to them, I play them some nice music to relax them, because I work with music. And I said, well, what if I told you that Simon, for example, is someone you walked with for 4 or 5 lifetimes, and there's a tremendous amount of love between you. But Simon observed that there's a lesson that you keep failing over and over. And so Simon decided that he will work hard to build up good karma and good points. And then he will reincarnate in your lifetime. Play the devil's advocate because he loves you, so that you can get it. And when the life is over and you get to the other side, you embrace and you say, oh my God, I didn't think I could do it, but I did it. It was done out of love. Can you feel that?
I feel that, and that's one of the most powerful lessons or downloads that I received, Dr. Norma, that the people that we think are hurting us are really loving us. That was such an eye-opening for me. That especially when you talk about planning your life, that okay, we're going to plan this, and this is for this purpose. That it's not to tear you down, it's to build you up. And that's something that if we get that, like, that's humongous in itself. So I want to go to 2 other things you said, and then I want to talk about what you do with your clients, and we talk about your book a little bit, and then how people can get in touch with you. So I'm somewhat familiar with this, but I imagine that not everybody who watches this is familiar. You touched on the Council of 9. Who is what is the Council of 9?
The Council of 9 has responsibility to determine whether you are going to move up the line and really kind of appoint those, what level of guards do you need around you? What level of guides do you need around you? They have a lot of authority in the spiritual world. And of course, in the spiritual world, we don't even look at it as authority is negative. See what I'm saying? They're also, when you plan the next life, they have a lot of input. Well, I want to go down and I want to clear this amount of karma. The Council of 9 is the one who's going to say, well, then these are the steps that the earth will opportunities that will allow you to do what you're asking. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
wow.
When we are putting the life together, listen to this carefully, we understand. I don't know if you ever watched Star Trek. You know those teams that you have on? Many of us are in training to become team members that will help to organize, plan, or keep discipline on another planet. And therefore, it is required of us, much like when you go to college, there is a curriculum, and you have got to fill and experience the curriculum. You got to pass those tests before they give you the piece of paper, don't you? Well, that's what we're here for. And when we're planning it, we're looking at, well, you know, I really need patience. Because if you notice those teams on spaceships, etc., they're very disciplined. They don't get all angry and upset over stuff, except for the latest ones now that is kind of being written by people who are, you know, what not. So there is very good reason why you are writing what you are writing into your program, because you can see the future. And the future should be for all of us to be able to break free from this density that is Earth. But until we have learned all the lessons that Earth has to give us and help us to refine, we have to keep coming back.
Yeah, and I hear and I receive that it's such a privilege to be on Earth, to be able to go through what we go through.
Like going to Harvard here, you know?
Yeah, it's like, yeah, that other entities and other entities on other planets are somewhat envious to some degree, that we've kind of gotten the golden ticket. But when you talk about going to the 16th dimension, what is, touch on that? First of all, that you have to pass through, or that you just kind of go straight there?
Oh, no. You travel to 7. And when you travel to 7, you got to break down. And you stand there and you are in total darkness, no fear, total darkness. And for me, it's like somebody takes a high pressure vacuum cleaner and it turns it on me. And what happens is this whole body gets completely broken down and I become a speck of light. And then once I become the speck of light, a whole spectrum, that first spectrum that I saw before I went into the white light, that spectrum appears again. And then the light that I have become begins to search the spectrum to find the exact spot that is keeping with my rhythm, etc. And that's how I enter.
Wow.
And then when I get to the other side, now I have to wait and rebuild the spiritual body.
Yeah.
And I can move.
So fascinating, intriguing, and incredible at the same time. So I'm gonna begin to wrap this up and just say, for those who are watching, first of all, thank you for tuning in. I think the world of you, Dr. Norma. You're just such an amazing and beautiful soul, and the light emanates off of you as well. If you are someone watching and listening who this story resonates, and maybe this has answered some questions for you, or maybe you have some additional questions, I definitely encourage you to go to reprogramyourlife.org, see what resources and what information Dr. Norma has on there. Reach out to her and ask your questions, and get the book, and even have that open up more of life to you and your understanding. And both links will actually be in the description below. So you can just click the links and it'll take you right to the book and to the website. Having said that, any last words that maybe you would want us to know that, that could really, inspire us or speak to us?
Well, this statement came directly from the Council of Nine.
Mm-hmm.
Love is divine. God is love.
Mm.
Love, when it hits the density of the earth, turns into light.
Mm.
And light is the steward of creation.
Wow, that is so beautiful. So having said that, again, I want to thank you all for tuning in. As I often say, I love you and I appreciate you, and both Dr. Norma and I say goodbye for now.
For now.
For now.